Hello friends, Lee here from TableTop Bong. Thanks for joining me. In this video, I thought we'd hang out, have a sesh, and I would talk to you about one of my favorite life/manifesting hacks. And that is reframing. Reframing is a super simple technique that you can use to get absolutely drastic positive outcomes from. So I thought, let's hang out, we'll have a couple of bowls, and I'll just kind of walk you through the concept of what happens when you're doing reframing, and I'll give you a couple of examples so I can show you how it works. It's really easy stuff, but it's easy to overlook it as well, and if you're not consciously aware to do something like reframing, it just may never occur to you, and if it never occurs to you, you're missing out on a really simple tactic to change things in an easy way. So let's take an example and I'll show you what reframing means. And all it really means is to change the way you're looking at something. But if you do it properly, it can be deeply profound in the way you approach something. So let's just say, okay, here's a simple example. I was speaking to a person one time, and they were explaining to me that they were trapped in this negative emotional space because of a dream that they had. It was a dream and a nightmare at the same time. And I said, okay, a dream and a nightmare. Why is it a dream and a nightmare? And they said, well, because everything feels like a dream except one part felt like a nightmare. And I said, okay, so let's talk about that. So what this person explained to me was the part that felt like a nightmare was that they had opened their eyes to realize that they had been buried alive. But then, the rest of it was a dream because they could also see from that space somehow within their mind that all kinds of things were growing around them, that grass was starting to grow and flowers and birds were flying, and it was a beautiful nature scene right there. And the person woke up and was startled and stuck there and could not figure out what did it mean to be buried alive. Okay, so here's the reframe. Super simple, because what I saw was not that. I saw that was too contrasting. It didn't really make sense for the way the mind would have been flowing in that dream state. So I suggested perhaps instead of being buried alive, is it possible that you were being planted? That you were about to grow through the soil along with all the flowers into nature, and you were part of that beauty and that connection into the oneness. And that person automatically burst into tears with such tremendous relief, because that was such an easy thing to reframe for them to make them feel comfortable with what happened. Okay, so it was just a simple reframe of the thought because I came at it from a new perspective. I came at it from a different perspective than the person explaining the dream to me. That's all. So a very simple tactic, right? I just looked at it from over here instead of here. I saw something different because I'm not emotionally attached to what's going on. I don't have an emotional attachment to the fact of whether this person had been buried alive or not in the dream. It doesn't matter to me. It's just information to me. So I could reframe that and none of it has any real effect to me. But for the person who it lands on and they see that and it does connect to them and they do feel instantly like, that is exactly what happened. I was planted, and this is why I've been at such in a state of disharmony with myself, because I couldn't understand why it was a dream and a nightmare, and it's just been troubling my mind. And here now I can resolve this very quickly and easily now because I understand what happened, and it's a reframe, and we moved on. So how can you use that for things that you want to accomplish in your life? If you're working on manifesting something and you're, putting your attention forward and you're taking steps toward that goal and you keep running into the same brick wall, we need to stop right there and we need to take a side step. We need to reframe what's going on. You must be saying, I can't do this, I can't accomplish this, this is impossible. And there's a lot of negatives that are going into that space because you're stopping at the same spot. So you have a limiting thought that's getting you to stop there. So what if we, again, do the same thing and we come over here and we just come at it from a new angle? What if we say, oh, wait a minute for a second, yeah, it is possible. So there's just a factor or two that needs to change for this to be possible. Okay, so we can forget this for a minute, and now we can talk about what's possible. And we create a pathway of thought and imagery in our own mind of seeing it being possible. And if we do that a number of times inside our mind, and we just keep pretending over and over and over, because this is what I would do with people in a hypnosis session, right? I would plant this new thought in their mind while they're hypnotized and then create all this imagery that supports these thoughts. Well, you can do that for yourself consciously. You don't need a hypnotist, right? You can do this. You can see it from a new angle. You can decide, wait, it is possible. I'm just gonna change my starting point. My starting point here says it's impossible. My starting point over here says it's possible. I don't need to know the rest. That'll figure out. I just need to start differently. So you're gonna put it in a new frame that says, this thing I've struggled with is now possible. And then you imagine what it would feel like when you accomplished it. Forget the steps, it doesn't matter. Steps don't matter right now, you're reframing it. You're going to reframe it, new idea, it's possible. And then you're going to load in to that frame some emotions and some imagery of yourself accomplishing the goal. Pretty simple, right? So you go, oh, that thing I couldn't do, it's possible, and that's what it's going to feel like when I do it. It's not going to be too hard to come up with the tremendous amount of satisfaction you will feel when you accomplish the goal. That's probably pretty easy to come up with when you keep hitting the same roadblock over and over and over. If you keep hitting the same roadblock, at least you have the desire to get to the goal. Otherwise, you just stop. So you can come up with what it's going to feel like when you achieve the goal, when you get that thing accomplished. So all you have to believe in the beginning of the frame, yep, it's possible. And then jump to the end. Feel what it feels like. Feel that accomplishment, feel that satisfaction, live in that moment. Just fill that frame with all the positivity, pour it all in there. All the gratitude and appreciation you're going to have for not getting stopped in the middle and for having found whatever you needed to have found on the journey. It was just a successful journey all the way through. You can imagine this, just pretend in your head, be playful, use your imagination. We all have a creative imagination when we allow ourselves, not all, maybe most, the vast majority of people can access their imagination. And to do this. And if you can't, okay, well then that's a whole other story and there's another way to do that, but that'll be a different video. But the vast majority of people can do this and get to that point where they can actually feel the feeling. So just stay there for a minute. Just stay in that for a minute. You've been in the failure moment over and over and over. You know all about that one. You're not afraid to enter that one. So just jump over here for a minute and say, well, all right, I'm just going to try it for one minute. I'll just try 1 full minute of pretending I accomplished the goal. Put it in that new frame. All of a sudden, when you do approach it again, if you start thinking from that new frame again, if you say, you know what, I don't need to know how I'm getting to the end. I just need to know this first step. Give yourself room to learn and grow, right? Just allow yourself the understanding that you're going to gain the information along the way in the journey. That's just how it works. If you believe it's possible. If you take the leap and you reframe it into something that is positive and empowering that will get you into action, you'll achieve the goal. You just have to stay on it, and you've already been doing that because you've hit a roadblock over and over and over. So you're just taking that same energy, you're reframing it, and you're putting it into a positive light, and then you're moving forward again, and this time, maybe not the first time, but the second or third time, you will be successful. It will happen. That's just the law of the universe. If you stay focused on a goal, and you can see the outcome and you can feel the outcome, you will eventually achieve the outcome. It's just how it works. You just have to be willing to stay in it long enough. So when you reframe, you can make anything possible. If you really think about it, we do this all the time in our minds. We imagine an outcome when we think about any situation. Even if we're recalling a situation, there's a charge of energy that comes up in something that's happened in the past. If we reframe how we look at that, we can actually change our emotions about the past. We're not going to change what happened, but we'll change our own perception of what happened. And if you change your perception, haven't you basically changed your own reality? Right? This is the way I see it anyway. If you can see a situation where you think you were less than successful, and then you can prove to yourself from a new perspective you were 100% successful, when you look back on that situation, you're going to remember the success, not the failure, because that's what you concluded upon. So that changes your reality of the past. It's pretty cool, right? Like, this is a pretty fancy little trick just by changing where we start on something. Right? And we just have to put it in a new frame for a minute. We just have to allow ourselves to see it from this new perspective. It's not tremendously complicated, but it does require a discipline in the beginning. Once you start doing it, it becomes kind of automatic. Because here's the thing, everything we imagine, we have to put it into a frame. So we're already doing that work. If you've had a thought about it, it goes into a frame, right? It just does. If you think about life partners, you have a frame. You think a certain thing about life partners. If you think about driving a car, you have a frame of feelings that go into that, right? You may have nervousness, you may have exhilaration, all kinds of different things can go inside that frame, but you have something in there already. It's already in there. If it's less than positive, you need to put something positive in there, right? Like, think about it. It's not that difficult. It's pretty simple. You just have to fill that up with something new. So you have to know how to do it. And that's the key thing, right? That's the trick. And that was something that I would use as a tactic a lot of times in hypnosis sessions with people over the years when they needed to blast past something where they were really stuck. I would take them into the space of hypnosis and then have them imagine from a new perspective being successful in that situation. And then I would have them imagine over and over and over what that feels like and just take them through that journey. Visually and in mental imagery, so that they could see it, they could taste it, they could feel it, they could experience it, they could become one with the success. And then that becomes the new frame, and that becomes the new path, and then that becomes exactly what ends up happening in the end. The person then would go and have that outcome the very vast majority of the time. If they didn't have that outcome, then there was something that, hadn't been discussed or disclosed that we needed to rewire, and then we go ahead and fix that, and then typically the person gets the outcome. You just have to spend your time in the reframing. So instead of having, a hypnotist or somebody else do that for you, you can do it for yourself. It's really, you just have to find a place where when you start looking at it, it feels good. That's the important thing. If you look at something in your life over and over and it feels bad, you need to change that to lighten your own energy, so that you'll have more available energy, you'll have more available mind space, you'll just be a happier, more balanced person. And isn't that kind of the goal, right? Like, these little life hacks, if we can just think about something from a new perspective, it doesn't take a lot of work. Am I even hitting this ball vape or what? Come on, I gotta get myself some balls going on here. Just so excited to explain this to you guys, because you can change your whole life with reframing. Your whole life. When people tell you what to expect about something, reframe it and make it what you want it to be if they tell you it's not going to work out for you. When I started the YouTube channel and the TableTop Bong community, people told me it was going to take forever if I could even get to 1,000 subscribers or 10,000 subscribers, which, we've knocked down those goals pretty quickly. Why? Because every time I have felt as though there's some resistance, I reframe it so that I'm always moving toward love. I'm not sitting in the resistance of any of it. I know if resistance comes up, it's because I need to learn the lesson and I need to learn how to get back over to the path of love from this other perspective. So that's what I do over and over and over, and I don't let anybody tell me that it's not going to work, because I've experienced it enough times in my life. I believe that it will work, and if I believe it, it's going to work. So then I can empower myself each and every time. And that's what I'm really hoping to pass along to you guys as we're going through this sesh. And speaking of session, I got to hit this again. I'm loving using this Lotus Bowl for microdosing. It's great. I love this about the community, right? Like, a number of people dropped in the comments that the Lotus water pipe adapter makes a great microdose bowl with a lot of injector vapes. And true. Thank you. Anytime we change our life in a dramatic way, we've had to reframe a whole lot of things to make that happen. The more often you reframe the things that you don't like, the better you feel in life. You just have more available energy. You just feel more positive and upbeat all the time. Of course, everybody's going to ebb and flow in their own energy, but when we're in that sort of ebb state, that's when we're learning what we need to do to flow. So that's when we need to look at our reframing, definitely, right? And when we're stuck in less than positive cycles on anything or in ourselves, these are the lessons. These are the things that we need to reframe, and they're being shown to us very, very clearly by our habitual thoughts. So just jump in and pick one habitual thought that you have that is less than positive. Put it in a new frame that however it feels good to you, and then imagine that outcome. Imagine how good it's going to feel when you have that outcome, and then just sit in that for 1 minute and just see how you feel about that whole thing. Like, just try this out for yourself, right? Now imagine if you put some real effort into that, instead of just 1 minute exercise to try it out. But imagine if you actually put some effort into it and really dug into all of the emotions of how it was going to feel when you achieved that goal, all the wonderful things that it's going to open up for you. And you go a little bit deeper and imagine how that can, spread out. If you accomplish this goal, it can affect a number of people, which then can affect a number of people. And all of this positivity and love can just spread. Guess what? When you think about that in that perspective, you very often end up in situations where that's exactly what's happening in your life, and it's magical. It's magical. So, my friends, I hope you start looking at things that are less than positive and reframing them into something positive so that you can start to feel some of that empowered joy that you can get just simply from your own thoughts. Doesn't take a whole lot of effort, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time, and that's great news, right? Because not a lot of people have a lot of energy when they're starting on a journey like this. And when you start reframing things, I know that's typically when you're at the lowest point of your energy, because you kind of make a change when you feel like there's nothing else but a change. That's what you have to do to be okay. That's normally when you have the lowest amount of energy. So just start with something small. Allow yourself to build your energy. It comes quickly when you start doing this. All of a sudden, believe me, it becomes a bit addictive when you start feeling all these positive things. It creates a ripple effect of saying, hey, I can let this other thing go. I can reframe this. I can reframe this. I can reframe this. And then people start saying to you, oh my goodness, you're so much happier. What's going on? Believe me. Give it a try. You'll see what I'm talking about. All right, my friends, I think we're going to cut it off right there. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this and got something out of it. Please give it a try. I think you'll be really, really happy you did. Until next time, take care.